This is Ichbinhamma. He's a game developer from Austria and the creator behind the successful indie game Dwarves, Glory, Death, and Loot. It's an RPG auto battler. And one day, a fan in Itch's Discord notified him that his game was stolen. People in his community were getting advertisements to play the mobile game Forward Core, and upon inspection, it was revealed that it wasn't even just a copycat developer where someone stole his game design, like this Pac-Man clone, but an actual one-to-one clone of the source code, just reskinned and rebranded. And unfortunately, Itch wasn't the only developer getting scammed. This is Fragsworth, the developer behind Clicker Heroes, a massively popular idle game. And not only did his game get copied, but the scammers filed a trademark in China and got the original version taken off the Apple App Store. To this day, it still remains offline in China.
Yeah, so we've had our games copied multiple times.
I apologize in advance for the stop motion. My OBS software took a giant dump during this interview.
Some company in China got our game taken down off the App Store because they trademarked our game name in Chinese.
Right.
And Apple took the game down. Whenever something like this happens, we generally complain about it on the internet and people get upset. I'm thankful for that because that gets the companies to do something real quick.
And what's alarming is if you look around, it's not hard to find numerous examples of what I call App Store bandits. I found numerous threads across the internet where developers were seeking help with their stolen games. And it's not all that rare at all, like this Joker Poker clone of Balatro. And I found several commonalities amongst all of the bandits. They usually prey on independent game devs with small teams who have found some success but were not quick to port their game over to the mobile app market. And Itch's Dwarf game fits this description to a T. He's a solo indie game developer who has only released his game on PC. Itch told me he wants to port the game to mobile eventually.
The goal is still to bring it to mobile, and now it's actually even more enforced because a lot of people commented, but this would be nice for mobile.
But the scammers put his game on the mobile app store, and to make matters worse, these scammers added microtransactions to his game. It wasn't until he took his problem to the internet for help that he would make any headway. And if that wasn't a big enough slap in the face, at one point Itch received an ad on TikTok to download and play the stolen version of his own game. And unlike the scammers, Itch didn't find success corporatizing his game with a large marketing campaign. His project was discovered by a large content creator, SplatterCat Gaming.
My name is SplatterCat,
who discovered Dwarves GDL through an obscure Reddit post.
This is a very limited tech alpha of a game that a developer is working on all by his lonesome, and I happened upon it through the various methods by which I happen upon things. And frankly, I feel like it's a divine call from the heavens that I need to support every single game that has anything to do with dwarves.
SplatterCat published gameplay and commentary playing the Dwarves game, and after the publicity, Itch's game would take off, eventually achieving over 50,000 copies sold on Steam, with overwhelmingly positive reviews. And the game remained live, despite Itch writing to various app stores to get Forward Core taken down. As of today, the copycat clone of Dwarves has been taken down from all of the app stores. But after speaking with other developers, when people copy your game, it's really not that big of a deal. You see, you're actually lucky if they copy your code because it's a slam dunk when you go to DMCA them. And it's annoying and it's certainly wrong, but it's sort of a badge of honor that you've succeeded in indie gaming. And some of the most stolen from indie developers are those who win competitions, especially if you have to actually publish the source code for everyone to see. But what happens when somebody clones your game in a legal way? A developer could create a nearly identical game writing their code from scratch, yet copying your game mechanics one-to-one. And if they can get their mobile game to market first, or just market better than you, you're probably dead in the water.
When we made Clicker Heroes and it started blowing up on the web, we quickly rushed to try to port it to all the other platforms, right? We started doing the mobile port, and by the time we started doing that, we had I would say 8 months worth of features that we'd already built on the web version. So we had to port a game that was much bigger than our original product, right? Because we'd been adding features for 8 months. And so when we did the port, we couldn't cut features and port the game and then launch that on mobile. Our users would be angry. They'd be upset with that. So we spent all the time to port all of the features onto mobile. Before we were able to finish, the game called Tap Titans launched on mobile. And it was an exact mechanical copy of the beginning of our game. Not all the other features that we were working on porting just the beginning. And it blew up on Google and iOS. They got featured, and it was like one of the top mobile games of that year. And then by the time we actually finished our port, which was way more featureful than their crappy clone, we launched it on iOS and Apple, and it just kind of flopped. And we asked Google and Apple if they would feature it. And basically the response we got was our game wasn't distinct enough from Tap Titans, and so they couldn't feature it. And that was devastating. That made me livid. That was 100% legal. That's not even like breaking the law. They're just allowed to do that.
And App Store bandits don't have to copy your game to steal from you. Indie devs are prime targets for patent trolls. You see, in the early 2000s, people started patenting just about everything they could think of related to computers in the whole .com boom, some with the hopes of exploiting the patent system to extract settlements from vulnerable targets. I imagine it was difficult for older judges to discern a meaningful innovation that needed to be protected from a simple do-it-on-a-computer style patent. Luckily, in 2014, the Supreme Court decided that abstract patent ideas performed by computers are not legit. But that doesn't stop someone from trying to sue you with an illegitimate patent. And even if you can get the case thrown out pretty early in the process, it can cost tens of thousands of dollars doing so. In April of 2018, Playsaurus, the company behind Clicker Heroes, put out this post about being sued. The Electronic Frontier Foundation wrote an article about the whole situation. Playsaurus published this letter that they received from the GTX Corporation. They state that GTX has discovered that Playsaurus is facilitating the acquisition, exchange, and utilization of electronic tokens via web portals in violation of GTX's intellectual property rights. So you might be asking, what is this intellectual property? What is this patent? And essentially, it's a bunch of charts like this where you have buyers who buy tokens from sellers who give money to the vendor site in exchange for tokens. And it's essentially this chart right here carried out by a computer, and they got a patent for this. And it's completely BS. And the best part of this whole story is who's behind this. So I started looking into who is GTX Corporation, who are these people, and I looked up Leslie Jacobs, and I found some articles where people are debating who this guy is. It seems like he was hired by the GTX Corporation. He's not really one of their staff. And it's my understanding that a lot of law firms like this will use someone to kind of be like the fill-in lawyer so that the attention's taken away from them. There's a bunch of back and forth that Playsaurus put on their website, which I'm not going to go through in this video. However, my favorite part is when GTX accuses Playsaurus of libel. Whenever you have these bad lawyers who are going after people, like when I got sued, this happened as well. They don't like things going public because they want to keep this under wraps. They want to get their money. They want to move on to their next victim. And so when Playsaurus published all of these letters, which they have every right to do, GTX, threatened a libel case. My favorite part of this whole back and forth is when the lawyer that's defending Playsaurus says, as you know, quote, the truth is a complete defense against libel. And they quote a case. It's just so great. So anyway, I'm trying to figure out who is behind this because I want to know, how do these people sleep at night? Who are these people who have created an entire career, an entire industry around taking advantage of others and screwing other small businesses over? And after doing some digging, we figured out that the patent is held by Marvin Ling. I mean, you can just look this stuff up in databases. And his son is Andy Ling, who works for GTX Corporation as a lawyer who was involved in these cases. And if you look around the internet, you can find some articles about this guy. In 1995, the Phoenix New Times wrote an article about Mr. Ling, and it's absolutely insane. So let's go through this. So in the 90s, Andrew Ling was a Phoenix attorney in his mid-30s, and Andy gave his girlfriend a cassette tape and told her that he had recorded some of the songs with some jazz superstars. One of the songs he claims to have co-written was a song with Michael Brecker, who's a jazz saxophonist. Michael Brecker. I don't know much about jazz sax players, but he's got a whole Wikipedia article. He seems pretty legit. He also claims to have co-written one song, Pleasant Surprise, with renowned guitarist Pat Metheny. I like jazz music, but I'm not super into it, but this guy seems also pretty damn legit. And he left these notes where he wrote things like, thanks to the incredible musicians who directed schedules, flew across for 2 days, gave me ideas, and tolerated my incessant enthusiasm. Special thanks to Michael Brecker, without whose help this project would not have been possible. Thanks for believing in me. His girlfriend at the time was not impressed by the gift. And he tells his girlfriend, it's going to be great. You can't get it in any store. You can't buy it in the States. Yeah, you can't buy it in the States because it's not real. Nobody wants it. This girl who he had been dating for a few months was amazed by his achievement, which, of course, he reminded her daily. It gets better. He tells her that he was an agent of the Secret Service and he was on first name basis with presidents. She says she was attracted to him because of whom she thought he was, a physically fit Renaissance man who could be a lot of fun. I have a feeling that most self-respecting women who have good values and morals would not be attracted to this guy and would probably pick up on this, but it still isn't right that he's bullshitting her. I don't know how this girl couldn't have seen some of these red flags, but maybe he really is just super convincing. And like Ollie Mavin, the scammer guy who was like selling a game to the military, a fake game that didn't exist, there would always be like a shred of evidence to everything that he would tell me. He had a plane and he was a pilot. No, he didn't have a pilot license, and no, he didn't have a plane, but he had a picture with him in a plane, and he's an airplane enthusiast, and he had taken a beginner's course that he didn't finish. He knows enough that he could bullshit his way around another pilot or use a lot of fancy vernacular around somebody who doesn't fly. So I imagine Andrew Ling was in band in high school or something, or maybe has read like 7 books about the Secret Service so he can talk shop around people and really impress them. It takes her a few months to start doubting his Secret Service claims. And he went as far to have like keychains, duffel bags, and t-shirts, which is just insane to me. And when the New Times reached out to him, he told people, 4 different people, that he was on the 1980 U.S. Olympic Taekwondo team. And he even came up with this whole backstory that his ability to compete was shattered by the U.S. boycott of the Moscow Games. Never mind that in 1980, the U.S. never fielded a Taekwondo team because Taekwondo wasn't an official Olympic sport until much later. Like in the early 2000s. The earliest that I can find any official Taekwondo event at the Olympics was in 1998 when they did just like this demonstration, but it wasn't even a competition. And he told some other lady, I'm guessing someone he was trying to date, that he'd come to George Bush's aid as a Secret Service agent after the early 1992 vomiting incident in Japan. And apparently they found lots of other people, 6 other people who he had bragged to about being in the Secret Service. And the Secret Service has investigated him for impersonating a Secret Service agent. The U.S. Olympic Committee says he was never a member of the Olympic Taekwondo team. And of course, he never composed or recorded anything with Pat Metheny or Michael Brecker. And this article talks about how he has accomplished many things in his life, and it makes his outlandish stories seem more believable. And I can totally understand how it might take a couple months to figure this guy out. Apparently he does play the piano and he does speak 3 different languages, and he's an actual attorney at law, which we will get into in a minute. And this article does point out that he does work for his father's firm in Phoenix. So we have the connection right here, and that's the GTX Corporation, of course. And when the New Times reached out to the Secret Service, they said, they can't really prove criminal intent. And to make a case against someone for impersonation, you have to prove financial or material gain. He's just bragging to potential girlfriends and people he's trying to impress. So they're not going to do much in this situation, but it's just absolutely insane. And the New Times interviewed Andy and asked him about his relationships with the musicians. And he said he played with them. And he even said, in my opinion, it was more of an honor than anything else, but my main gig is international law. And then after the New Times realized it was all bullshit and they reached out to him a second time, he denied that he ever had played with them at all. They actually showed him the transcript of the earlier conversation, and he just explains he meant to say he wanted to play with them someday. It's absolutely insane. And the article points out that Andy apparently hasn't spun his yarns for financial ends. He seeks to benefit by impressing friends, strangers, and apparently himself. But we know that not to be the case. The article again makes the connection with him being an attorney for the GTX Corporation that does business internationally and is owned by his father. If you want to read the whole article, it's called The Lion King. It's a fit title. So what does this guy look like? Who is this guy? What does this guy look like? So he has this Twitter account, Andy Ling Lawyer, and he connects himself with GTX Corporation here. And you got to be careful because there are a lot of different GTX corporations. And he's just like a typical Facebook boomer, you know, posting about happy holidays and generic recipes and things like that. One of my favorites is the secret to success that only you possess. 20 thought-provoking quotes that will have you appreciating Mark Twain all over again. Like, it's like a bot. It's like bot behavior. And listen, if it was just a bunch of lies to impress people, it's whatever. You move on with life. Everyone's run into people like this in their life. All right, so I thought it'd be fun to compare and contrast Andy, the scammer, with Itch, the small indie developer. So while Itch is busy creating multiple games to raise awareness for an endangered parrot, making no money in the process, and even using funds from one of his in-store app purchases to adopt said parrot. By the way, they are really cute. He's got a whole video about this on his YouTube. I can link down below. Andy Ling is busy creating an illegitimate patent to extract wealth from actual innovators. Ichbinhamma keeps his source code easily accessible to allow modders from the community to have fun and create new variation and innovation. Andy's GTX Corporation threatens to sue a developer when they publish their email where they try to extort $35,000 from a small developer. Itch makes a product that people love out of passion and is discovered by gamers in a natural way. All while Andy creates this fantastic alter ego because he's insecure and he probably hates himself. Okay, so here's the deal. Many of you are probably wondering how this problem can be solved, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. It's only going to be easier to copy someone's code and with the help of AI, rewrite the whole game and with enough variation that it's practically a new game, you know, legally speaking. And it's not feasible to obfuscate the source code of games. If bad people want to steal it, it's just going to happen. So when I spoke to developers, they all essentially told me the same thing. In one way or another, the communities that are built around games are the strongest deterrent to App Store bandits. If you like a game made by a small developer, check out their Discord, follow them on Twitter, and give them a review on Steam. No sponsor for this video. If you'd like to help me out, watch more of my videos, like this one, or maybe this one.